All right, welcome. This is Wonderland Nursery Seed Series. We're super excited that we got to put this on. The whole purpose of it was we believe that the breeders that work throughout the west coast of California, west coast of the United States, are just some of the top genetic providers in the world, and it's really difficult for the customer to access them. And now with the way new regulations are in place, they can't sell to the customer direct through sales at events. And so it created this separation in my mind that didn't allow the farmers who needed access to the genetics to get to the breeders directly. And so what we wanted to do was we wanted to have the public be able to access the breeder directly, so this way the information could be established and the relationships could be built between people who work gene lines and farmers who need those gene lines, and how they work together in some symbiotic fashion to succeed. And so now that you know what the purpose is, this is BAM, and we would love to thank our sponsor. Forgive me for my impromptu, I'm not used to doing podcast type stuff, but I'm thanking my sponsor, Shape and Fire, that's Shango Las. We've been doing some work together, and he puts on a hell of a podcast, Shape and Fire, and I really dig it. I'm on it doing the history of CBD, but I also, like the Hair Club for Men, not only am I on it, but I also read it too. And here is Bam from Coastal Seeds, and he's here, and so welcome, Bam.
What's up, everybody? Honored to be here. Thanks for having us.
Awesome. Bam is someone who I have a lot of respect for because we've done a lot of professional work together on panels. Bam is someone I consider a brilliant individual with organic methodologies, hugelkultur. He's incredibly intelligent in the way he uses biologics to keep his cannabis plants at a level of homeostasis without any kind of contaminants, so that his products can be turned into incredibly high-level concentrates. He is known for genetics that are very hardy and work in coastal environments. He's known for, at least from my knowing of him as a professional, for someone who's been able to use beautiful landrace varieties, exotics, and meld them into things that allow them to be worked in a 40 latitude, which requires a level of breeding direction and precision. And I'm going to shut up and let's see what's up with Bam.
Hey, everybody. I'm Bam from Coastal Seeds. I represent an amazing crew of individuals: Kagu, Mr. Bob Hemphill, Hannibal, and Headwaters. We are spread out between Santa Cruz County and with headwaters in Nevada County too. We specialize in heirloom and landrace varietals. Got a great collection of genetics, and I feel like I'm always the student. I'm attending the UC Davis Plant Breeding Academy right now, trying to learn more of the scientific approach so that we can pair that with the artisan intuition that has brought us to where we are so far, and really trying to push the boundaries of what we're capable of achieving in our lifetime.
Awesome. Oh, you got a call-in question? Hey, you got a little call-in question. The question is, what is something that you see trending this year in terms of flavonoid, terpenoid profiles? Is that right?
Yes.
Okay. Bam, what do you see as trends?
I see the big return of fruit flavors. The citrus made a big comeback with the tangy and a lot of those strains, but I think that more and more we're seeing that the concentrate aspect of the industry is really growing. We're seeing exponential growth both in vape cartridges and other types of concentrates. And as a breeder who also works on an extract company, the highest grade, for me, I'm really looking at a wider palette of flavors and how these flavors actually impact the extraction process. So for me, I specifically work with CO2, which is a selective solvent, and what we're seeing is that different terpenes are acting as co-solvents, and so the presence of certain types of terpenes is greatly enhancing yield, greatly enhancing the quality, the tackiness of an extract, the viscosity, and I don't have all the science yet to come to firm conclusions, but what we're doing now is the great part of running a seed company and an extract company is that we're able to take our data from the field, run it through, and everything that we get is lab tested, and so now we're compiling this data and we're looking at sets of terpenes and complementary cannabinoid profiles, and really trying to take a look at, okay, I'm seeing that myrcene and limonene are phenomenal co-solvents. The strains that have a higher percentage of these two things are also yielding much better.
On the extraction yield.
On CO2.
Yeah.
So, because CO2 is a selective solvent, so it doesn't get everything quite as efficiently as some of the hydrocarbon extractions.
So in your process, you're optimizing the back end to work for CO2 the highest grade.
Right.
Yeah, no, because we didn't mention this, but he's just as well known on the breeding end of it, maybe more well known as a high-level extractor. He's won a number of competitions. He has an exceptionally unique type of extract in that the fact that, I can't say this really for anybody else, but it actually, for someone who knows the varietals, it holds it in the mouth. And on CO2, it's real. CO2 is, and that's a tough one, and so he's doing some stuff that's really, really unique. But it's interesting because I wasn't aware, I do this with varietals in terms of cannabis, where I use the whole state of California as my map. So this way we can figure out what farms optimize using what genetic form and what gives them the best results. And it allows us to have true data that lets people be in a better position. But I didn't think about it from the CO2 form, where you were really going at it, not just extraction, but extraction specifically for the terps that get pulled and add to CO2 value.
Yeah,
that's fascinating.
So I'll give you an example.
Yeah.
Originally, we were finding our best yields were coming out of CBD varietals, and so we thought maybe CBD is just an easier molecule to extract. We're getting almost at least 50% more yield off of a lot of CBD varietals. Then we wound up extracting a pheno of the harlessu, which turned out to be our greatest yield to date. But when we went to test it, it had almost no CBD in it. And so that was kind of like the first time that we were like, but it tasted exactly like all the other harlessus that were high in CBD. So that's when we started to make this correlation between terpenes acting as co-solvents. And you see it if you look at a lot of the history. If you look at a lot of the history of CO2, different people use co-solvents like ethanol to improve their yields, and now we're able to do it all naturally.
Totally.
And so in our breedings, we're starting to log this data and start to identify what correlates with what. Recently, we just dropped the Northern Lights #1 crosses, 2 of them that we're making available today, first time ever at Wonderland. The Northern Lights #1, if you look at all of our extractions, we do a virgin cold press extraction, which is non-winterized, no additives, nothing added back, it's a fresh press. We're looking at an average THC percentage of about 40 to 60%. That's the spectrum. But this Northern Lights was an anomaly. Without doing anything, we're hitting 75% THC in an unwinterized, non-distillate, pure raw extract. What's causing that? I don't have all the data yet. And here's
we got another question too, but so let me let the question go, then we'll go back. Yeah, 'cause that's fascinating. What makes it deliver more?
What makes it deliver more?
What's the question?
Well, #1, people want to know if you're here all day at Wonderland.
We're here until 4.
Okay, Bam, till 4.
And then the question, Bam, is, can you speak on the history of Puna Budder?
Puna Budder. Well,
it's one of your fans. You've got a lot of love coming in, by the way.
So we got it from Puna Boy in Hawaii, who's got it from his parents, and his brother and his circle were growing in Hawaii for a long time. Puna Boy inherited the seeds and was unable to propagate them. Identified a few individuals within the community that he was willing to release it to do a seed increase. And so we got a hold of them. We did the bulking of the original seeds, and while we were at it, we did some outcrosses to sort of, I like to outcross to various elites that we know really well, because it helps to inform us about what the potential of that stock is.
Yeah, I use known males. I do the same thing. I have known males. I blast into anything. I blast into anything I can see, because I really need to actually understand the plant in a different fashion. If I can see your parents, it lets me understand you better. Even if I'm not going to grow the parent, it's just a true understanding. So I got you. You tied it in.
To see what it does.
Yeah.
But my understanding of the Puna Budder, from what I've seen, is it's either a Thai Gani or a Colombian Gani. It's a hybrid sativa. sativa indica varietal doesn't dominate what it gets crossed into in terms of the smell department, but really is tremendous on the stress tolerance and the vigor and the yield. Utopia Farms grew out a pack of the Puna Budder cookies back before they were double-endeds. They found one ridiculous phenol that they were pulling 2.7 pounds per light that was testing at 26% without Hermy traits and with the nose of cookies.
Yeah, it's crazy.
So we did, well, at the same time that we were doing these crosses, we also used the big Sirholi into many of the same varietals and did the stress testing. And we saw that the big Sirholi wasn't able to improve the hermaphroditic traits of the cookies, but we saw that the Puna Budder was. And so there's something inherent to
It's a good
the
dominant stability, yeah.
And when you look at
Heterozygosity.
the varied climates in Hawaii, I mean, like, what does Maui have? 5 different climate zones? So, in 4 different seasons?
Well, I lived in Hawaii in the 80s, and then like when I was a kid back on the East Coast, we used to have Hawaiians that would come over to Boston that would harvest, who were Hawaiians, but they'd come over to Boston and move all the bulk. And so in the early 80s, 80, 81, 82, 83, 84, that time period, I'm meeting guys from Hawaii that are moving real Hawaiian over to the East Coast, and then I go and live in Hawaii for a couple of years, and I get to mess around on all the islands and check all this stuff out. And it was incredible cannabis because it was of a cerebral nature, which is really what we don't have to smoke anymore in our varietals. So it's funny because I have people all the time coming in talking about the old Hawaiian varieties and are any of these things left, does anything remain? And I have an old Cambodian in the other room that's a throwback from a time period, and so it is. To me, it's fascinating because I miss those electric type highs. And when I was young and I smoked it, and it was so powerful that when you were young, it just took you over. Yeah. So you have memories of it that are just, like going to the park as a kid, where you just every time you go to the park, you're positive. So I've been seeking these things, and it's funny. Yeah, the old Puna Budder.
Yeah. So the Puna Budder, when we grew up, when we're doing the seed increase, what I found is a lot of the pure Puna Budder comes out skunky fruit. So when you enter the room, very sweet smelling tropical pineapples, guavas, that sort of nose. But when you lean in and you go to smell it, it was very skunk-like and almost just ugh.
Yeah, musky. Yeah, acrid.
But very interesting blend of the two. The fruitier, lighter terps are more volatile because that's what fills the room as you walk in. But then when you squeeze the bud, you get that skunk.
I noticed with a lot of the varietals that we got to work with over all these years, because I know there were Southeast Asians that were coming over to Hawaii, and then when I got to Southern Humboldt in the 90s, there was still a lot of these varieties here. And what I noticed was that they had taken all those hermaphroditic prone strains. They're all unisex. And so anything from that Asian area is unisex, and it can be grown there because they can grow it in field form. But once it came over to the U.S., they had to hybridize it. And I just noticed that same thing was where you saw a skunky, it was like they had used either a skunk male, old Afghani male, Paki male. Something was a male used to stabilize it, because if it had been unisex, they wouldn't have been able to grow it the way they did. And the weed coming out of Humboldt County at that time period was, phenomenal electric cannabis, and we've lost so much of it. But it's funny because I see
for shorter
time. And helicopters were coming and trying to get smaller plants, and then the desires of the smoking population changed, where they wanted to go into more of a narcotic because we became, I think, financially depressed as a nation. But the point is, I noticed that in a lot of the stuff that I've seen that was the Asian breeds, that somebody 25 years ago was smart enough to put a stable something into it that allowed you to actually have and hold copies.
Yeah, we work on a lot of that stuff too.
Yeah.
We have some Thai varietals and some old landrace Colombians that we've crossed pure guineas into to sort of like help with that, stable guineas that don't hermaphrodite, and looking to bring down some of that flower time. Like the Manga, which is a great Thai varietal. The reason I brought it back from Thailand is the way that I described it is after smoking it, I was so electrified. I felt like I was like rock climbing on planets, just gigantic, like.
I want back then.
Oh,
Yeah.
you know. But I tried to finish it, you know, and like it was still going in February.
Yeah. It goes on till next year. It's almost like a biennial, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
We have a question about CBD.
Sure.
Someone says, what CBD plants can yield well in light depth that you're running or that you've created? Light depth CBD
That
that
we've
can
created?
yield
Well,
or that you're dealing with or know of.
The last laugh does well. I didn't create it. I found the pheno, and we've done some subsequent selection working with Steep Hill. Steep Hill Labs has phenomenal genotyping capabilities, and so they've identified CBD marker ratios. And so what's really unique about the last laugh that we've been working with is that we found a pheno that, if you notice on a lot of CBD varietals, the better you grow it, the more THC shows up. So like, you know, with AC/DC, the range is like 15 to 22%. But as you push up into the 22% range, your THC goes up into the 1.5% range. With the last laugh, what we found is regardless of the conditions that it's grown in, the THC pegs at 0.4. So you'll have one that grows at like 18, 19% CBD, THC still 0.4.
Pins out there.
Grow it in a rough climate, really wet conditions, and it drops down to like 11% CBD, 0.4. So that's a mutation that we've been sort of exploring and working with Steep Hill to analyze.
Which is phenomenal for consistency, because otherwise you can't go from in these forms from seed.
Right.
You know what I mean? You don't have an ability to use any of this in broad spectrum. You have to always go from the same cultivar, and you can't explore new options. That's neat.
Yeah, that is neat.
Mr. Bob Hempel and Hannibal have extensive experience working with field-grown hemp, CBD. They did a stint in Colorado for a while, and you know, one of the hardiest varietals that I've witnessed and know firsthand through their knowledge is the Remedy. You know, Remedy doesn't grow like a lot of these other CBD varietals, all paisley and floppy and cohardy. It can withstand winds, it can carry itself, and it can support itself. And so we actually did a last laugh Remedy cross, which we still have yet to finish all of our trials, so we're not releasing it yet. But
the last laugh's the recommendation.
yeah.
The last laugh.
You do laughs last best. Alright. Where we at? We got doing good on time. Cool. Yeah, no, it's just so interesting to see some of the technologies. I'm working with Phylos on mapping so that we can start to see where we have true F1 ability, where we bottleneck, what really is the same thing, and it's starting to let us get a much more accurate picture of the industry in general. And then I like what we're doing, because any of us that are doing this in this form is basically we're open sourcing it, because it's now all
Public data.
Yeah, and you can still work on patent it and down the road if you release it. It just sets precedent that you touched it first. But the point is that it allows this material to start to get out there and information. And it's almost like when they did the genome project for the human genome, where they had to really turn it into a competition and they had to release it, because the U.S. government couldn't do it on its own, no other country could do it on its own, no scientists couldn't do it on its own. But they finally found somebody that could, crack the code. And I think that's what we're doing with cannabis, is that for so many of us trying to understand how do we work and create things that satisfy for the patient, satisfy for the user, but work for the farmer on a consistent ratio so that the losses are diminished and overproduction isn't the standard. What we do now is produce as much as we humanly can, hoping we get some of this shit to sell, and that's the business. And that is sloppy, poor agricultural, and that's what we do as a nation in general. And I think that if we can do it in better ways, you'd be able to have very defined, specific markets that would be fed from what you're talking about, chemotypical, terpenologically stable in a pattern that would let people know, hey, this is what I do. And then you can find the right farms to produce that, which is what we seek out with the farms, is trying to find farms that have the ability to produce products at a specific quality level, right, with operators who understand what that means. And then now you get breeders that are doing it on a scientific level, so we have a reproducibility. And that's what's just so riveting to me about this whole thing, is that you'll really be able to have, we need to produce this much, these farms produce this much, and now you have balance. And the glut starts to decrease, which is what you're seeing right now. Yeah. Accurate. you know.
And as far as like the sharing of all the data and getting that information out there, it's not a zero-sum game. The reality is that no breeder in his lifetime can accomplish all that there is to accomplish. And the more that we share, the more that this data gets out, the more that we collaborate, the more that we can understand as a community, the greater opportunity that we foster for everybody. I don't see it as the other way where now the information's out there, everybody's going to get me. Like,
It's
they
the
can't
opposite.
get you. Like this was God given, and the opportunities are infinite, and so the more that we understand, all we're doing is empowering each other to have the tools to go further, go harder, and create better quality. And what your needs are going to be as a breeder here in Southern Humboldt are going to be a little bit different than somebody who's down in Anaheim.
Exactly.
And that's the beauty of California.
Yeah.
All these microclimates allow our
enough to
diversity.
cover. California really is the cannabis world if we used it correctly.
Yeah,
We have enough. Yeah, we have enough to cover basically all the geographic zones on Earth in production. The concept
I can go
is
to the beach and go snowboarding
same day.
3 hours
Yeah,
away.
same day. And and then I think I had a discussion with someone the other day, and it was concepts of scarcity versus abundance, about how we approach it. And I think that's the thing is you collaboratively work on these things and go forward. I think you have you have Burbank, Luther Burbank was one of the greatest breeders in the modern era, but he stood on the back of other people. And I just finished reading a book about Humboldt. So it was this incredible book about Humboldt, who was really the most incredible naturalist scientist that ever existed on the planet. And he was kind of diminished in power because when World War I came out, he was Austrian. All the countries changed it from Humboldt and this to all these other names. So we still use it. But up to that 1920 period, he was so powerful. Darwin was his disciple. All modern science rolled from Humboldt. Humboldt had a mind that was so unique in the way he saw all things. But it was such an inclusive thing where he shared all the data nonstop.
Right.
And he suffered financially for some of it because the problem was he was too advanced. It was almost like Van Gogh. Van Gogh dies poor, but he's at a level so high above everybody else it doesn't exist. In our case, we actually have many of us that are like this, where we're really trying to, I'm not saying we're Humboldt or we're Van Goghs, but we're trying to be artists. We're trying to go into places that science will explain, but we can only see with our eyes right now. And and to me that's really where the hunt begins.
There's a question about that for
just,
Bam.
Yeah, go.
It says, knowing you're an artisan, what have you learned in the past 10 years? What really stands out for you as important information coming from your artisan perspective?
That you never know it all, and that there's always something more to learn. I like to see myself as more of a student than an artisan.
Yeah.
I'm a student of the artisan craft,
But you execute craft.
yeah,
The hands work the craft, but the brain is a student, but the fingers are doing the work.
And so it's just I approach everything with the idea that I know nothing and that I always have something more to learn. And I honestly I think that's what's given me the most amount of strength, like everything, like even like with our CO2 oil company, I started out by doing experiments, and I think like the will to try things out and like not be driven by financial goals, but by genuine curiosity and like passion and love. If you have a burning question, find out, dig, read, test, play, and it's through that understanding, it's through that process of trying to understand that everything that's been good to me has manifested. Whether it's our oil process, whether it's our breeding projects, whether it's finding that killer pheno, it all started with like raising questions and then seeking it out, and also learning to like not be dogmatic and stuck in your ways. You're going to see things along this like artisan journey that are going to change your mind and blow the cobwebs out your mind. You thought something was a one way, and sometimes you get over focused on it being one way, and
It's a
realize
four way.
that was an anomaly. That was the wrong way. And so
Snapshot in time.
Yeah.
So really just be open to all the possibilities is what I've learned. It's not like a profound one piece concise like here's the key to things, but that's really where I feel like fulfilling my passion comes from is from answering questions that I have in my head. And I just don't stop asking questions.
Well, apparently everyone agrees with you because the comments are like, forever learning, there's always more.
Yeah,
Always a
never not
student."
learning. That's like my favorite motto, you know?
Yeah.
That's Michelangelo.
Is it?
Yeah.
Well, you know, genius minds think alike.
There's a specific question. It's gone now.
The question is gone. The moment is over.
Let me see if I can remember it. It said something about
But you know what's important though, that what he says too is, you know, it's really not. Don't be afraid to fail.
No.
And I try to tell people that I probably killed more crops than most people ever grew. Really, because I've been doing this for so long, and it was in all my own failures. It was in my R&D room failures. It was in all my personal failures that let me really understand how to guide people to success with their projects, because I was making my own mistakes, trying to understand nuances that had to be learned through repetition. Repetition is the mother of skill, and without constant repetition, constant reinforcement, constant trying to drive a line, you can't develop the skills yourself. And so it's funny because everybody that's going to come through, BAM, and all the other operators, that's what I really love about these guys that we invited, is that it's really all craft guys. It's not, hey, I jumped into some game and I'm throwing some pollen on some shit in a tent, and I have a picture of it, I think, but I didn't take it. I just pulled it off the internet and I wiped out someone else's watermark. You know, that's not, you know what I'm saying? It's so real, it's unreal. And so, man, it's been my pleasure to have you here, my brother.
Thank
my
you.
pleasure, man.
And just real quick to circle back to like the whole failure thing, you know, you see this in plants too. Sometimes it takes an extreme amount of stress to unlock the most amazing phenotypes.
Yeah.
Without the stress, you could never even achieve
Yeah.
that aspect in the plant. So like
The response,
the response, right?
it's epigenetics. It's what allows things to really develop over time. Genes modify in response. It's evolution. But with plants, it's funny. Plants and dogs, you can speed up the process.
So failure
Yeah.
sometimes is just the stress that that you need to bring out your own phenotypic capabilities.
Oh yeah, no, yeah. It makes us who we are too.
well, there's one more.
All
You
right.
want one more?
Yeah, we got one more. Yeah,
well,
no,
the
please.
one more is. Do you believe that the change in law, they said Prop 64, is going to have any effect on your ability to be an artisan, helpful or de-helpful? Is the changing climate going to affect you at all?
I hope not. I think that there are some sensible people at the state level, and there's some good lobbyists out there that are working towards it. I'm like my plants. I'll adapt to whatever environment happens. We were here before the changes. We'll be here after the changes. My mission is to a higher being. It's like preservation work and breeding is something that's intrinsic to like my own self-worth. And if I have to move, if I have to do it, I'm not going to stop.
Yeah.
I can't stop. Like this is what my life has been built up to.
It's
People, my mentor is 75 years old. He was doing this when, you know, before I was born, and so we've been given the torch, and yes, it complicates
Carry it
things.
till the
A
hand
lot of my
burns.
time, a lot of my time in the last couple of months has been stressing about how to like file for the right permits, looking for the real estate, trying to dodge like the real estate glut, the predatory lending practices, the predatory real estate practices, the crazy zoning. It's all a nightmare in many senses, and in other senses. It's not. It's opening up the avenues for normalization, and I'm just hoping that where the equilibrium falls in all this, and that is going to be a safe space for us all. But that doesn't mean that we sit back and say, Prop 64 is over. Now our work is done.
No.
Meet with your supervisors. Call them. They need to hear
Refining
more than
the
the same
process.
old people. The more people that call in, the more I'm very active as a citizen. I write to all my congressmen, not just about cannabis, because the thing is, if you're only writing to a person about cannabis, then you get lumped into one category. Like I like to think about us as citizens within the entire ecosystem and a holistic approach. If I'm seeing something wrong with the road, there's mudslides, I like to be the guy to call up. If there's problems in the fire with the fire breaking in the state park, I like to make myself known to the state park. I want the world outside of the cannabis to see us as normal, and I think that part of like winning and adapting to these changes is putting our best foot forward, setting the right example so that people see us as valuable assets to their community, and make sure that what we're talking about and what we're thinking about is bigger than just our profitability and the survival of cannabis, but how can cannabis integrate into our communities to improve it? And the more that we can get out there and push that sort of message, the more hearts and minds will be changed, and the outcomes that we seek will be actualized. It ain't over till we say it's over.
And I'd like to be your neighbor. Right on, man. All right, we're going to be closing. We'd love to, we're back in 30 minutes, but we'd love to thank Shaping Fire as our sponsor, and we hope you enjoyed Bam from Coastal Seeds.
You guys.
Thanks for tuning in and checking us out.
And bring them, come on down and meet them.
Yeah, come on down and be here for the rest of the day.
Love to see
And,
y'all.
and a lot of this information, I said we're going to be writing this up on the Ganjier site, so a lot of this stuff will be present. So if you want to be able to take a look at some of these thoughts, plus more stuff we're going to grab from all these guys, it'll all be put online as we go forward. So thanks so much. See you in a little bit.
Peace.